Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Environmental Justice Now. Happy Friday. Thank you all for joining us again today. My name is Leah Jones, and I am the Education Coordinator for Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. Now, today we are continuing our conversation around federal policies and opportunities by discussing Biden's new infrastructure plan, titled the American Jobs Plan. So to tell us more about this plan today, gratefully, we have my colleague here with us, Jonathan. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yes, so just a little bit about Jonathan. He is the Federal Policy Associate for the National Interfaith Power and Light. Jonathan advocates for creation and climate justice on Capitol Hill on behalf of the 36 state affiliates and over 20,000 congregations in the IPL network. He also serves as the Director of Faithful Advocacy for Interfaith Power and Light, DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, connecting religious communities in the region with environmental campaigns to expand clean energy, providing a distinctly moral response to the climate crisis. He is also a graduate of Eastern Mennonite University in Harrisonburg, Virginia, where he studied peace building and development. He comes to this work after several years as an affordable housing advocate with MANNA Inc., where he saw firsthand the strain that shifting weather patterns is putting on communities in our region. So once again, thanks for joining us today, Jonathan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, enjoying this beautiful weather. How are you, Leah?
I'm doing good. Also enjoying the brief heat wave that we're getting right now. Makes me feel like summer is here. I'm feeling fresh and renewed.
Yeah.
But to kind of kick us off into this conversation, can you just tell us a little bit more about the American Jobs Plan and its purpose?
Yeah, sure. So the American Jobs Plan is, right in the title, putting people back to work as we are hopefully, seeing the end of this long dark tunnel of the pandemic, and getting people back to work, getting the economy moving again. It's also, putting people to work on the project of rebuilding our country's crumbling infrastructure. And so I think the first thing that a lot of politicians, at least here, when we say the word infrastructure, is roads and bridges. But we know that infrastructure is more than that. It has to be more than that. When we talk about, a zip code being so predictive for where someone's life will end up, that is in large part because of the investments in infrastructure that the government has made in whiter, wealthier zip codes over the past century, and the investments that they have not made in Black and Indigenous and people of color zip codes and low-income zip codes over the past century. So I think as the faith community, we have a really important job of being the moral voice, reminding our elected officials that infrastructure has to be more than roads and bridges. It has to include things like clean energy, expanding clean energy. And the American Jobs Plan would, for the first time ever, have a national clean energy standard, which would be so exciting. It would put us on track to achieve President Biden's campaign promise of 100% clean electricity by 2035. It would do things like expand clean water access across the country. It would electrify our transportation, making electric vehicles more accessible and electric charging stations available across the country. And it would expand public transportation. So there are all these different pieces that we need to be reminding our legislators are an important part of public transportation, or an important part of infrastructure, an important part of what it means to care for our neighbors and to invest in our communities.
Right, that is so true, especially because many of the communities who are already affected by, like you said, infrastructure, poor infrastructure, antiquated infrastructure, are also affected, in other ways because of poor air quality or poor water quality. So making it an all-inclusive type of situation, type of policy is definitely important as we tackle these issues. And like you said, care for our neighbors. And you did touch on this a little bit, but how do you feel like this could affect environmental justice efforts on a federal level? I know you mentioned that we could reach our national clean energy standard, which is great, obviously, but more so directing it now to the environmental justice aspect of things and environmental justice communities. How could this benefit them, or what does it mean for them?
Yeah, so I think the most important top line number for environmental justice is 40%. When now President Biden was campaigning last year, he made the promise that 40% of the money we spend on the climate crisis would go to the communities who've been affected the most by fossil fuel pollution. And now with the American Jobs Plan, the proposal he's put forward, he would keep that commitment, with 40% of funds going to those environmental justice communities. So, this is just a proposal he's put forward. Congress is actually writing the legislation right now, and we need to make sure that Congress follows his lead and includes that 40% commitment in a strong, meaningful way. But that would be huge if 40% of this $2 trillion plan was going to the communities who suffered the most pollution. Some of those other things that I lifted up, clean water access. This plan would remove and replace every single lead pipe in the country. That would be huge. Flint, Michigan is kind of the face of unequal, racist, dirty water in the country. They still are waiting for clean water access, and sadly, there are millions of other people across the country outside of Flint who are still drinking water that comes through lead pipes. So that, besides that top line 40% number, there are so many projects like clean water, like clean transportation that could be advancing environmental justice in our communities.
Right. Even I know you mentioned Flint, Michigan, and obviously other communities across the country are facing these issues as well. But obviously here in Virginia as well, people are even struggling with access to clean water. So it's, like you said, huge that a federal policy will actually have an impact, or could have an impact, on our local communities, like seeing those efforts trickle down into our own neighborhoods, our own and improving the lives of our neighbors. So I think that we should now maybe shift gears to think about like why it is so important that we create policies that address all of these issues all at once, kind of simultaneously. I know a lot of the times when we tackle these issues, advocating for environment, it's separated. We have transportation, we have water, we have air, but it seems like this policy can bring all of those things together. So why do you feel like that's important?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a question that's being asked, I think, with a little bit less good faith a lot in Congress, especially from more conservative lawmakers. They're asking this question: why can't we just address our roads and bridges? Why can't we just take these things that are the most popular and do those things alone? And I think, we've seen some examples in the past year why that just won't work. We've seen in Texas earlier this year the kind of freak ice storms that happened there, which are a climate disruption in action. We saw the ways that their electrical grid wasn't ready for a changing climate. So if we're doing infrastructure in the 21st century, we can't do it without putting climate front and center. It just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. So when we're doing this work of updating our infrastructure to be ready for a changing climate, why wouldn't we also do the work of trying to prevent that climate change? When we're making an electrical grid that's ready for new kinds of winter storms, why wouldn't we also make that electrical grid ready for a future where there are solar panels on every rooftop? If we already have to update our water infrastructure for changing stormwater patterns, why wouldn't we also update our water infrastructure so that everyone can have access to clean water? So, picking out pieces, just doing a smaller package that focuses on some things that are maybe more politically popular, leaves out a ton of opportunities for making our communities safer, healthier, and more ready for the climate changes that we're seeing.
Absolutely. Literally what I was thinking about. And I know it's easy to get, especially I guess being a legislator, I don't know what it's like to be in that seat, but um, right. It's like, it would be easier to think about maybe issue one at a time, but, um, that is not how our health works. That's not how our environment works. So definitely having to re-navigate and rewire the way we think about these issues is something that I feel like we're definitely going to need to make happen. And I think the American Jobs Plan is maybe making, going a step towards that direction of rewiring things and rewiring how we think about environmental action. So I wonder now, you working with a lot of legislators, what are some of the challenges to this policy that you've been seeing? I can imagine that everyone has been thinking that this is a great idea, and are enthused about it. So what do you think are some of the challenges?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is the one you just named, reminding our legislators that all of these things need to go together. There's been a lot of pushback and saying that we could just do a smaller package, or maybe we could split it up and do two packages, one with the popular stuff and one with the hard stuff. That's not realistic. It's also a challenge because, as you know, Congress and especially the Senate are very closely divided right now. In the Senate, we have 50 senators who caucus with the Democrats, 50 Republicans, and Vice President Harris is breaking ties in favor of the Democrats. And so we're also in this interesting kind of procedural position where most legislation can be blocked because it would need 60 votes to pass the Senate. The filibuster means that a lot of legislation needs 60 votes to pass. But there's kind of this exception for things that are focused on the budget, focused on spending funds. And so this plan has to be kind of carefully crafted so that it can pass through the budget process rather than needing that 60 votes in the Senate. So another part of what that means is any single Democratic senator, if it goes that budget route, could throw on the brakes and bring the process to a halt. So I've heard from a lot of people across the country, I think my senator's on board. Do I really need to be talking to them? Yes, because there are so many important things in this plan. We need to be reminding them that climate has to be front and center, and every single vote is essential on bringing that message home.
Right. So one more time, just to clarify, were you saying that the Senate seems more supportive or more opposed or than Congress, or I kind of got lost a little bit in votes?
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
the path is definitely harder in the Senate. I think we're going to be seeing the bill move first in the House, and then we'll have a lot of work to do to make sure that the Senate passes something that is just as big and bold as what the House passes. So, some of those things that I named at the top, like a clean energy standard, like expanding public transit access, like ensuring clean water all across the country, those are things we're going to have to be reminding our senators over and over are an essential part of an infrastructure bill.
Okay, great. So now I know you've already mentioned reaching out to our legislators, pestering them a bit, but are there other things that we can do to show our support for this policy, especially for people at home, regular everyday constituents, but also organizations? What can we do to continue voicing how important this policy is, and why our legislators should be supportive of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So one great option, we have a call-in tool. I think you have the link for that. And so if you go to that link, it will give you a phone number that will connect you directly with your senator, but it will also give you a quick script that you can read through. So you don't have to try to memorize, everything we just said in the last 15 minutes. It'll help you with the right words to offer to your senator. The other thing, National IPL and some other faith partners are working on an action for June 9th. It's going to be our first in-person action in over a year. And we're going to be gathering faith leaders at the Capitol to show support for the American Jobs Plan, and specifically for that 100% clean energy standard. So we're calling it 100 faith leaders for 100% clean electricity. And if you are any kind of leader in your congregation, certainly we've got professional clergy, but I know so many people watching are involved in children's education, or involved in the green team, or involved in making sure that the music happens each week. If you're a leader in your congregation, you're a faith leader, and we would love to have you join us as one of these 100 leaders telling Congress that we need 100% clean electricity.
Oh, I love that. And you said this is be on Capitol Hill, right?
Yeah, we're going to be in front of the Capitol.
All right, that should be exciting. Some time to build morale and feel the energy of everyone else for the first time, not via Zoom. So that'll definitely be exciting. Also, I wanted to share, in addition to all of those things that Jonathan just listed, we also have included in our comments, and should be coming up on the screen soon, just the fact sheet that is on the White House website. So please feel free to also read through that. It's pretty long, but it gives you totally, if you are interested and would like to learn more about this plan in detail, please check it out. It breaks down all the different ways that this policy can affect our communities for the better, breaking it down from transportation to clean water to infrastructure, like Jonathan mentioned earlier. So please be sure to check out all of the resources that we have listed in the comments on Facebook, and feel free to ask us any questions. Those are all of the questions that I had today. Jonathan, is there anything else that you would like the people to know or share about your work, or the American Jobs Plan, or your efforts in general?
I think I would just say, we talked about a lot of different policy pieces here today, and sometimes that can be intimidating to folks. You don't have to be a policy expert to let Congress know that infrastructure is a moral issue. I think this is a basic issue that everyone can engage on, and everyone should feel comfortable picking up the phone and giving your senators a call.
Right. It's something that we all need to get more comfortable with, because I think a lot of the times we don't realize that it's so easy to just pick up the phone and call or email. It is our job to bug them. They're supposed to answer our calls, listen to us. So we shouldn't feel bad about it, and we should feel excited to do so. So thank you again, Jonathan, for being here today and sharing all of your knowledge about this policy. We hope to hear from you again in the future. And also, please, for those of you watching, if you would like to keep up with VIPL and our efforts, please use this link on the screen to get the emails from us to stay in the know what we have going on. And we will see you next week at 12 p.m. on Environmental Justice Now. Thanks, everyone.